This is a story about how technology is disrupting certain aspects of our industry. And today we've got a really fascinating panel that's going to take you to a place you may have imagined in the past. But first, let me ask, has anybody here not seen The Matrix? That's amazing. Well, I was expecting it to be somebody a lot younger, you know? Somebody that would say like, oh, dude, that's way before my time. But in 1999, the Wachowski brothers created this dystopian 3D augmented reality, virtual reality kind of universe where the people didn't even know they were inside it until they were awakened by Morpheus and his gang. Now, the evil robots aside, I think what the Wachowski brothers did was to create this kind of vision of what 3D might be or virtual reality might be given the technology that's been developed. Our guys here today have been working on creating the Matrix, believe it or not. And when I started looking at their websites and their technologies, I started to get all goosepimply about the possibilities that might be, you know, not just in terms of the corporate real estate applications, but also in terms of what's beyond that. And today we'll get a little handle on that from a really distinguished panel. So David, maybe you could just introduce yourself and your company. Let's keep it short and snappy because we want to be better than the last crowd that was up here.
There we go. I'm Dave Eisenberg. I'm the founder and CEO of Floored. We are a software company based here in New York. Team's about 40 people, and we're working on practical applications of VR, 3D scanning, 3D visualization, and artificial intelligence for commercial real estate.
Hi all, my name is Greg Angevine. I'm the founder of Cube Cities, and Cube Cities is a floor-level visualization system for commercial real estate data, so we can light up cities to understand spatial context of data and markets.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Peter Boritz. I'm the CEO of Real Data Management, where we are taking data and marrying it to everything that you need to visualize in a building. So our platform is an online tool to manage buildings and space analytics. I love the tie look. I mean, it's simple, you know, it's just the tie.
Thank you.
Is harder.
It's not a new one.
And we are not building evil robots yet for real estate, but maybe soon.
Hi, I'm Vit. I'm founder of Augmented Pixels. We're based in Palo Alto last 2 years. Originally, I'm from popular country now, Ukraine. We are good in augmented reality technology and virtual reality. We have several platforms for real estate developers and helping increase sales. We have clients worldwide, like United States, Canada, Saudi Arabia, and Middle East. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Now, what I'd like to do is just get a handle on, you know, the size of this universe and kind of what we're talking about. David, could you just talk a little bit about how is your technology and the 3D kind of direction different from like renderings or other kind of photorealistic applications?
Sure. So I think in almost everybody's case up on stage, what we're doing is we're helping evolve the industry from talking and using two-dimensional data, so that's floor plans, blueprints, renderings, videos, and actually moving it into the way that we experience the real world, which is interactive 3D. So the primary difference between what we work on at Floored is that all of the data that we generate is interactive and queryable. So what that means is that you can actually walk through a floor, a new development, a new building, a new area of the city like Hudson Yards, and rather than be sort of subject to a specific view or a specific pathway, you have full flexibility in how you navigate that environment. And that gives you the capability to do things like change materials that you see on the floor or on the ceiling, or do things like swap out a technology layout for something like a financial tenant or a legal tenant.
Peter, your technology kind of fits into the 3D world. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. We, and I, you know, David and I were in discussion and always looking at opportunities for us to take advantage of these new technologies. We sort of sit at the intersection of the 2D world and the 3D world. What I see as far as, the connective tissue that will be joining it further and what would be most valuable, particularly to the landlord ecosystem, is the data part. Like, we sit on top of the world's accounting systems. If it's Yardi, MRI, we built the pipes to, have real-time data put into the visualization tools. And I think that's sort of the next evolution is, so you're looking at something and you can do all the things that were mentioned, but now you're also seeing real-time data, if it's occupancy, if it's space history, if it's energy and material sustainability, and so on.
Could you talk a little bit about the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality?
Difference is very simple. Virtual reality, it's just some virtual world without connection with real world. And when we're talking about augmented reality, it means what we can recognize environment, and we can provide some additional interfaces to customer to interact with this environment. I don't know, for example, we can recognize chair and understand what is the brand, etc. We can integrate into the environment some new 3D model of some element of interior, and you can check how it looks in your new interior.
Thank you. Greg, now your technology and activities are of a slightly different scale. You're looking at things at more of a building and maybe even a city level. Could you talk a little bit about that?
That's right. So the best way to imagine what we have is we have gone and collected all of the known points that surround the buildings in our world. So we've decided on cities to activate, and over the last few years we've gone and found all of these coordinates in 3D space, so we can create visualizations and articulations of buildings based on anything that's happening inside them. So imagine the 3D buildings in Google Earth. We effectively can light them up on a floor window level.
Excellent. We're going to come back to that in a minute because I've got, we talked earlier and we've got some ideas about other applications of that concept. David, could you maybe comment on the idea about whether this kind of 3D technology is destined to be a professional tool, or do you see it actually growing into a more consumer product or technology?
Yeah, so this is an interesting case where this technology is actually going to start professional and it's going to work its way from the enterprise to consumers. And that's for a few reasons. To run 3D content, to run virtual reality content actually requires relatively powerful computers. In fact, computers that are more powerful than those that are in your office and certainly those that are in the palm of your hand. That will not always be the case, but for today, that's the case. And so, for instance, I'll just talk about some of our examples. So next month, a bunch of the folks on my team are headed out to Las Vegas for the ICSC conference. This is the big conference for retail leasing, and a number of owners there, folks like Related, Mace Rich, Simon Properties, they've contracted with us to do virtual reality exhibits at the conference where you can actually walk through their new developments and look around and feel as if you're there years before these buildings actually existing. To power those experiences, you're actually talking about hardware that costs almost $10,000, and so this is not going to have the broad adoption at the consumer level like something like the introduction of the iPhone did, where it actually replaced, in many cases, a more expensive device in the BlackBerry. That said, these experiences are so powerful, they're so compelling, that there's no doubt in my mind that this will ultimately be dozens and hundreds and thousands of consumer applications that will key off of augmented reality and virtual reality. We're just going to have to wait for them to actually hit the enterprise first because of cost.
Vitaly, I think you've got some opinions about that and the commercial or consumerization of this technology.
Yeah, if you look on a trend, you will see what big companies like Google, Facebook, they invest in a lot in mass market devices with features in augmented reality and virtual reality, like Oculus Rift, Samsung Gear. For example, Samsung Gear sales will start next week in big retail networks in the United States. So since we reach auditory, like mass market, it will be billion of business. Now it's like million of business. So our revenue estimated in millions. Since we will have a mass market device for VR and AR, we will be like billion companies.
Peter, could you talk a little bit about how It sounds like you've got something to say first.
I had a
and then I got
comment, if that's
question
okay. I
for
don't
you.
want to break the flow.
Go right ahead.
Real quick, David and I, we share a lot of customers between RDM and Florida. And I was recently at a landlord's office, major landlord in New York, and he loves what Florid's doing. But he also said, this is like Xbox for real estate. And so how do we go from the micro need of, looking at retail or residential and make it more of a macro core sort of business grade value prop. And so, that's the direction it's going in, but those are some of the challenges. And one of the things we see is sort of the intersection of that is, people are in our tool every day. It's almost like as often as they're checking their email. But that's sort of the challenge out there, is going from a micro to a macro solution, I see.
Well, maybe you could talk a little bit more about that and how this sort of virtual technology, because I know you're thinking about this, is how's this virtual technology going to affect these folks here today? Like, where do you think that these folks are going to interact with these virtual technologies?
Well, I think that it's already happened. It's just a matter of, as David mentioned, the sort of consumerizing it. And so it's going to be more affordable. It's not going to be a luxury item. When the market has a dip, what do people cut? They cut the country club membership, right? So it has to be affordable. And then in terms of how it's going to affect people in the business, I think that it'll allow them to visualize things that will help people make decisions in faraway places. And if it's a retail location that, let's look at it as a Starbucks. Let's look at it as a fast food. Let's look at it as a consumer electronics store, a law firm space, a tech space, a media space. And then you layer in all that data, which will happen when you tie in like the sustainability issues. What are the finishes? Let's look at it in the nighttime or the daytime, the lighting. I think that's going to be very disruptive. Yeah.
Greg, your technology is a little bit different from these other guys in that it's more sort of infrastructure scale. Could you just talk a little bit about some of your customers who are using the technology and what they're using it for?
Right. So originally, when we started the business, it was listing data that we would visualize for organizations that were collecting this and wanting to distribute it in a way that was a lot more specific on a building level to actually understand the scale of spaces based on building proportionality. Moving forward, more recently working with pensions in Canada who are traveling the world buying buildings, who are interested in giving us tenant data that they could mine. So, for example, show me all of the law firms in Toronto that have leases coming due in 2017 because my new building is going to be finished in 2018. Those kinds of visual reporting tools for board level communication ends up being a more specific and very interesting application of the technology. So those are two examples.
Great. David, are you finding that your business is coming as a result of substitution, that your technology is being used to substitute for other things? Or is it like an incremental enhancement to the work that your clients are doing?
So I think that's a pretty specific owner-by-owner situation. I do think that the prevalence of these technology companies is inciting a conversation inside of commercial real estate owners that hasn't really happened before, and certainly brokerage firms too, which is if I spend $1 here, what is my ROI on that particular channel? No one has ever thought of the concept of what is the ROI of me serving alcohol at a broker event, that coming, like obviously you have to do it in order to get folks there, but they don't think about these dollars and cents in the way that a retailer thinks about attribution of marketing dollars and what that's going to drive in incremental revenue. And so in our case, it's very easy for us to come in and say, if you're going to spend 200 grand on a marketing fly-through of your new development and so forth, we can do that cheaper, faster, and better. And so So we win business that way, every single day. And so we are a cost substitution. We are coming out with a product that will be extraordinarily low priced relative to an existing cost that owners have. That's an easy sales win because that's a cost substitution. When we are an incremental cost, however, we're trying to introduce to the owner this notion of A/B testing, which is to say you have a vacancy. That vacancy has existed for months, if not years. Why not try, and one property, one asset, anywhere in the world, let's try and spend a little money to do something to help differentiate yourself, to do something to help get a tenant over the hump of not being able to visualize what it's going to be like to inhabit that space. And from there, when we can actually prove our success with an incremental, value to that dollar that they spend, that's when we start being able to make the case. This is a new expense for you, so this is an incremental cost over zero, but you're actually going to make money if you do it. So let's do it more broadly.
Yeah, I think you're totally right about serving alcohol at broker events.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I
that's-
think there's a case study that CB
Plus,
did.
I think that's one of the big problems the previous panel is going to have in overcoming the whole broker thing. So, Vit, could you talk a little bit about, as virtual reality finds or augmented reality finds adoption, who are going to be the big winners and losers among the current players in the real estate ecosystem?
We are trying to, in the result, to deal with final customers. So we're trying to substitute realtors. And sure, maybe in 2 years, in 3 years, we will change power on this market. So it will be less. So some will be losers, some no. In any case, I think the winners will be customers because so our virtual reality company is solving two problems for customers. First, we're solving problem what clients will spend less time to travel between flats to make a decision of purchase. And second, we're solving problem what they can feel what they buying. For example, a lot of Chinese people buying property in United States, even not traveling to United States. So we provide such kind of experience that they will be able to choose in better way. So in any case, winners will be our clients. Losers will be companies who will not adopt behavior and who will not adopt sales channel according to these new technologies.
Yeah, I think that's particularly relevant as we see fewer and fewer boundaries to capital and that capital moving around the world.
Yep.
Peter, how do you see the integration of real-time data into 3D visualization tools? I know that you work more on the data side than on the 3D visualization side, so I'd like to get your vision on that.
Sure. So one of the things I found when I worked as a broker before I got into the CRE tech space, one of the most, numbing experiences was building a stacking diagram for one of my customers in Excel or Word. And so one of the things that I wanted to make happen in my company was we had to replace things that were the arcane sort of methods of doing things that waste tons and tons of money and they're so inefficient. So there's four areas. There's the analytics, right? Understanding what's happening in buildings. So that's a dashboard. The next thing was the stacking diagrams and the floor plans, okay? And then the capability to actually draw on that plan. And so then we said, okay, we can build those, but those would be kind of dumb things. They would just be static and not living, breathing canvases. So then we said, we've got to solve the problem of building the pipes to all the accounting systems, which is the central repository of all the rent roll information, lease expirations. And every time a transaction's done, boom, it goes into, let's say, Yardi or MRI. And then we pull that right into our stacks, our plans, and our analytics. So we solved that problem, and that we found huge interest in and helped us grow market share. And that's got to be continued. We all have to build an ecosystem that allows that data to come in. So there has to be data normalization. I also feel like there's a dizzying amount of choices within CRE tech right now. We see our landlords often very confused about what to choose, okay? And we're such an app society that I think that once the data gets right and there's going to be some sort of equalization here, there will be probably what I would call the one screen experience versus a landlord having 10 different places to go to different, for different types of data points.
Sort of like the post-bubble universe, right?
Yeah, I kind of disagree with the last. I don't see the bubble, but I mean, maybe, who knows? I'm not an economist, but
Right.
maybe.
Greg, now you seem to be the only one in your space that's kind of doing the thing you're doing. The whole sort of lighting of the buildings, the sort of citywide point of view. Why is that? And could you tell us a little bit about how you're maintaining that advantage?
Yeah, well, it really took a long time. So Cube Cities was founded in Calgary, Canada. Calgary is one of these towns that vacancy rates go up and down directly related to the number of drilling rigs that are operating in Western Canada. So I was in commercial real estate research at the time and saw the opportunity to visualize that using the buildings in Google Earth. But Calgary's just so small, and Canada's so small. So it took us a long, long time to activate New York and Chicago and San Francisco. And we had to figure out processes to quickly add thousands of buildings to the system in a way that was organized and we could control. So my team went through a few different approaches to it. We were working with Google early on, but these days we've moved off of the Google platform just because we wanted to have more control over the 3D mapping. So it is really still surprising to me that Google didn't really get into that discrete visualization capability with Google Earth, because it was an ideal tool for that, but it just wasn't their business. So we figured out, we built some tools on our own and found other tools on the market that we could use to provide the solution to customers.
That's great. David, you know, when I was looking at some of your fly-throughs, I started to imagine actually being in there and interacting with my colleagues in sort of an office-like environment. Now, that may be a little literal. I mean, there may be better ways to do that. But could you talk a little bit about when we're going to be able to introduce avatars and maybe do this thing like a Black Mirror episode?
Yeah, so stuff like that emerges when what I think people don't really get if they don't spend a lot of time with technology companies is how cheap it is getting to build a technology solution that can be deployed globally. And that's something that when people talk about the bubble, like the thing that they're just totally missing is that the cost of creating a technology company is plummeting, and that's not going to change. It's not going to reverse trends like cloud computing, mobility. The frameworks that you can use if you're a developer are now getting to be so good that you can create entire companies in weeks. And so like what's going to happen with Avatar and like the technology is already there. Someone has not gotten the exact user experience to what you want. They're actually not really solving the business problem. And when someone stumbles upon that, it will be broadly adopted. It's not really a question of is it possible? It's a question of do people want it, and do people want it in the specific implementation of how some software developers come up with it. I can point you to 2 or 3 companies that exist today that enable you to go to a virtual space and meet in person. The experience kind of sucks. Like no one really wants to use it, even though it's exactly what you just described. And so like I can do that for dozens of different examples of technology companies. The success is always comes down to how much delight do you drive for the end user and how much financial value can you create for them. When those 2 things meet, you have dramatic success. And it's just starting to happen in commercial real estate tech. If you guys want to see something really cool, there are 2 new technologies that are emerging in the next 2 to 3 years that you can go to YouTube and actually check it out. The first is a company that Google just plowed $500 million into. It's called Magic Leap. You can see a demo video they put out last week. What it does is it shows you what would augmented reality look like in your office if you were to turn your office into a video game level. It's insane. In a few hours, it had multiple millions of views because the video is freaking amazing. So you
Sounds like a great way to waste a lot of time.
Yeah, but that's fine. It's just it's just a technology
I like
demo.
yeah.
This is not to say that like people are going to pay for this application. It's just to show a proof of concept of what's possible. The second is a product that Microsoft is coming out with in late April. It's called the HoloLens. What it enables you to do is use 3D sensor capabilities embedded in a see-through set of glasses, and so that you can actually project virtual information on top of the physical world in a super realistic way. This, I think, is a game changer for real estate technology, is the ability to project virtual information on top of the physical world. When that gets delivered in a device that costs a few $100s, that is backed by the financial support of someone like Microsoft, you're going to see some fascinating applications.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot. Now, we're closing in on the end of our session, so we're going to go straight to rapid fire, one-word answers, okay? In 3 to 5 years, will every commercial firm be using some form of 3D technology in their business practice? Vit?
Oculus Rift or something similar to sell.
One-word answers, Vit.
Yes.
All right. Peter?
No.
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 Wow, that's pessimistic. Now, you guys got to tell me why. Like, why do you think it's not going to be as
One word answer, why?
Yeah. No, maybe give me a few more words than just one. Come on, answer the question.
The macro value prop versus ROI.
Fair enough. Hard to describe the ROI. Next one-word answer. Which company gets it the most and who embraces 3D technology in your opinion? One-word answer, starting David.
In commercial real estate?
No, just who gets it the best?
I'd say Facebook gets it the best. They just spent an enormous amount of R&D dollars on a very speculative bet that I think if you fast forward 10 or 15 years from now, their $2 billion bet on Oculus is going to yield something close to 100-fold return.
Greg?
It's a defense contractor in Pennsylvania called AGI, which is about to take over the Google Earth's space in the market with a product called Cesium. So look into them.
Peter?
I'm placing my bet on Google. They scare me.
Vit?
Google and Facebook.
And finally, what's the most important device that you use for business? I like the answer before, private jet, but maybe you've got a different one. David?
It's my laptop. I mean, I can run my business mobily from it, and it soon will be my phone. But the phones, because of the hardware, are constrained on what they can do with 3D. Laptops are not, particularly MacBooks.
Greg?
With the processing power of the latest iOS devices, it would be them. So the iPhone 6, iPad Air 2. But there is a difference between those and the generation before them.
You guys are having real trouble sticking to my one-word answer direction. Peter?
Could you repeat the question? I'm going to go with my,
What's
it's
the
kind of
most im-
boring,
what's the most important
Android, my Android phone. Yeah.
All right. Vit?
iPad.
Great. Now, we've really only scratched the surface here. Virtual reality, augmented reality, all of the ways in which we can continue to increase the way we interact with data and on the move or at a distance is going to continue to be a really important focus in the CRE universe. As an advisor to CRE firms, I'm always looking for ways to reduce rent rolls and run rate. And virtual reality promises a way for me to help my clients do stuff like that. Thanks very much. Have a great Disrupt CRE camp.